Hi, this is Michael Neuendorff with Build and Balance. Welcome to part one of a two-part class called Online Marketing and Social Selling to Drive Business Development. In this first part, we're going to cover online marketing and focus primarily on your website. If you handle your website properly, you can drive business, but there are certain elements that you need to have and you need to do them right. And so we'll cover that in this first portion. In part two, we'll talk about social selling and primarily focusing on a single platform that I think is essential for businesses to use what is called social selling, and I'll explain that when we get to part two. Now, please understand that this content is primarily for B2B businesses. If you're a B2C business, you may still get some tips that are helpful to you, but just know that if you're a B2B business, this was made just for you. So let's begin on part one of this two-part class. Successful SMBs in 2019 and soon to be 2020 need to successfully balance IRL and URL. What I mean by that is IRL is a popular text abbreviation for in real life. Now, chances are if you're watching this video and you'd like to improve the way you market yourself online and use social selling, you could probably use a little more URL in your business. You're probably really good at IRL in terms of selling face-to-face, selling over the phone, maybe even using email as part of your sales strategy, using events, traditional advertising, that sort of thing. All of that happens in the real world, or IRL. URL is the digital world, and the digital world is where business has been moving now for well over a decade. It's been quite a while. And now that we enter into a new decade, it's important that you become even savvier than you have been before in the world online. If you're not, you may be left behind by your competitors that are increasingly savvy about how to navigate the online world of marketing and selling. Now, our agenda for both parts is presented here. Intro to online marketing and social selling, creating the proper foundation online, elements of a modern website, what makes for an attractive social profile, getting serious about social selling processes, should you target a vertical industry, tools to identify prospects in a vertical, and creating and implementing an action plan. So intro to online marketing and social selling. Well, talk about a puzzle. It really can be complicated, right? There are so many platforms, and the line between marketing and selling is as blurry as ever. So the question I have for you is it marketing or is it selling? Well, the answer is yes. It's actually both. Never have marketers done more selling, and never have sellers done more marketing. It's interesting. The buyer's journey can now go as far as 70% through the buying process online. And remember, we're talking about B2B businesses. In B2C, 100% of the buyer's journey done online is not unusual at all. But in the B2B buyer's journey, oftentimes the investment is larger, it's more comprehensive, and more monumental to the business and its operation that you usually want to talk to a salesperson about a B2B transaction. And so the whole buyer's journey doesn't get done online, but a lot of it does. And a lot of that is created by marketers. Now, there are also salespeople who have become pretty savvy with online marketing. And so they are doing tactics that previously would have been left to digital marketers. But in small companies, salespeople often have to take on marketing tasks. So the answer really is yes, it's both. What platforms do I use? Well, there are myriad platforms that you can use, but we're going to focus primarily on one besides your website for this class. And I'll let you know about that in part two. Is it an hourly, daily, or weekly thing? Well, once again, the answer is yes. It really depends on your commitment to this new medium of online marketing and social selling. What would you like to do in terms of your commitment? So it really is up to you. The more you do, the more results you are likely to get. But you'd probably like to start small and add on as you go. So I would recommend that you at least give it some time per day, but we're talking a small amount of time. If you work an 8-hour day, you might give it 30 minutes a day to begin with, and then work up from there as you're starting to see results. Weekly just doesn't cut it anymore. in this day and age, with businesses actually hiring digital marketing professionals and training salespeople how to be good social sellers. So you really wouldn't want to do it weekly. Can it really generate leads and revenue? Well, absolutely it can. I can tell you from my own personal experience that by using multiple online platforms and delivering rich content like this, I have been able to generate real leads that lead to real revenue. And I've seen it happen for many other businesses. But here's the tricky thing. It is still hard to measure the results of your online marketing and social selling. You know that you're getting results and that your results are probably greater than you would if you didn't do these things, but you're not exactly sure how great the results are. So what I'm asking you to do here is have faith, trust me, that you can get results by doing things right. You just may find it difficult to measure. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Social selling and online marketing, they're actually a great combination because one is pull and one is push. Which is which? Well, you might have a guess, and I'm going to tell you the answer now. Online marketing is the pull. You're drawing people to your website by doing things such as Google Ads, using SEO. When people search for a solution that you offer, hopefully your business will land within the search results that people will readily see. And by following those search results, they will come to your website. You are pulling people towards your website with magnetic attraction. Social selling is the push side of the equation in that you are getting into people's news feeds on social platforms. So in a way, you're pushing yourself into the news feed of your prospect or your target. And therefore, by doing the push and pull together, you have this wonderful combination that pulls leads to your website, and then you are also pushing your information into the news feeds of your target and reaching them in another way. So consider that Google AdWords, for example, is pull, and Facebook ads is push. I'm not recommending either of those in this presentation, just using those as examples. So let's start with creating the proper foundation online, which is your website. So we're going to focus in this part one on your website and things that you should have on your website that attract today's modern online visitor. Elements of a modern website. We have 4 elements here, and then I'm going to share with you a bonus 5th element that you could consider. Neither of these is necessarily more important than the others, and they're not in an order of priority. They're on this slide to help you to get a visual of all 4, and then let's talk about them one by one. So first we're starting with video. Video is revolutionizing the internet in terms of the way people gather information about solutions that they're looking for to solve real problems in their businesses. When I do this presentation to live audiences, I ask them to raise their hands if they have watched a YouTube video in the last week. I can tell you that almost 100% of hands go up. It's usually somewhere between 85 and 100%. And then I say, what about in the last 3 days? Then it's usually about 75%. And I say, what about in the last 24 hours? Then it usually drops to somewhere around 50 to 60%, which is still a very large number. The reality is that almost everyone on the internet has a YouTube account and are watching videos on YouTube or other areas such as websites. People are now moving away from the printed word to videos. They go to YouTube and treat it as a search engine. They type in what they're looking for just as if they were on Google or Yahoo. And they find a video that solves their problem or educates them as opposed to a blog post. Blog posts are still useful and still relevant, but if you're not using video, you are greatly missing out on a fantastic marketing medium. I mean, think about it. How have your viewing habits changed because of video? If you look at yourself and your own habits, you know that video has revolutionized the way you gather information in all likelihood. It certainly has for me. And I have seen YouTube explode in terms of interaction for me, in terms of getting in touch with people who could potentially hire me for my services. And so I continue to invest in creating more and more video that I can put onto my YouTube channel, share on platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook, or place on my website. And I recommend that you do too. There are many ways to create video, and not all of them are expensive. You can create actionable, practical video for your prospects using today's smartphones. I mean, truly. Or you can hire a professional, as I do, and create videos in orchestrated settings. The next is a blog. Now, there are hundreds of millions of blogs online, literally. And so you might be wondering to yourself, the internet doesn't need another blog, and who would even read my blog? Well, there are a few reasons why you should still have a blog, even though there's too much content for the internet to ever digest. One is, your competitors may be doing it, and your competitors are adding content to their website regularly, which makes their website dynamic. By dynamic, what I mean is that Google is tracking new information going onto websites, indexing it, and making it available for web searches. For websites that are not updating regularly, Google is deciding that this site is losing relevance because they like websites that regularly add new information as times change. They believe that dynamic websites are better than static websites. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Static websites eventually get behind in terms of the relevance of their information. And so a blog is a great way to continue to make your website relevant to Google and to people that come to your website. We'll talk about the value of a blog and how to use it in a 3-step marketing process later in this presentation. For now, let me give you a few best practices when it comes to blogging. One is I recommend that you blog weekly. And I recommend that you create long-form content. Long-form content is doing better than short content online today. It's shared more often and appreciated more because of the depth of the content. And what I mean by long-form content is minimum 700 words and even up to 1,500 words. That's a lot of work. You cannot have a fluff post with 1,000 words. It's not possible. But you can have a fluff post that's 300 to 500 words. And this is where a lot of bloggers go wrong. They create blog posts that have very little helpful information, and they are just trying to continually add information to their website. That doesn't really help anyone. And if it doesn't help anyone, then people will be leaving that web page quickly after getting there, and that will actually hurt you in Google's eyes. The long-form content, people will stay longer on your website to read it, and they'll be more likely to share it, and all of that is good for you. So consider long-form content and posting more often than you're probably comfortable doing. It's usually a best practice to spread around the responsibility to a few experts on your team, if you have a large enough team. If you're a very small business, then you may actually want to hire a professional writer who can write topics that you handpick, and then you edit their material and apply your expertise to parts of the article so that you personalize it and make it your own. Within blog posts, you can also embed videos, infographics, sound files like podcast recordings, webinar recordings, etc. Next is chat. Chat is starting to become very common on websites today, and chances are you've seen chat used on websites that you visited just in the last week. It's almost becoming an essential element of a modern website. I wouldn't say that it's absolutely required yet, especially if you have a website that's fairly light on content. But once you start getting into a lot of content on a website where it becomes somewhat complicated to find it all, chat can really help. But here's a key point to understand about chat today. Some chat on websites is driven by bots. And what I mean by that is essentially a software program is running the chat and it's pulling content from a knowledge base. A recent study found that marketers believe that bot-driven chat is twice as effective as the people they're marketing to. Think about that for a second. Do you like bot-driven chat? Do you use bot-driven chat? The people I've talked to and the audiences I've given this presentation to uniformly say that they don't like bot-driven chat and actually avoid it. They close the chat window almost as soon as it pops up. Whereas human-monitored chat can be useful and helpful and direct a person to get information that they're looking for more quickly. So if you are going to use chat, consider having it monitored by humans as much as possible. And wait until the quality of AI-driven chat rises to truly meet the needs of most of your consumers. After that is appointment scheduling. This is a very simple application that you can use on your website and also embed within email. Appointment scheduling allows someone to click on a link and see the available appointments that you have to talk with you immediately. Here's how businesses are doing it without appointment scheduling. They have a contact form and they say fill out the contact form, and a person on our sales team will be back in touch to set up an appointment to do a demo. And remember, again, this presentation is targeted mostly towards B2B businesses, where demos, appointments with salespeople are pretty commonplace. That's the old way of doing business. We now live in the Amazon economy. In the Amazon economy, everything gets done quickly and is very user-friendly. Appointment scheduling is very user-friendly because, let's face it, if someone is interested in talking to someone on your sales team, they want to talk to someone right now, right away, or at least as soon as possible. And appointment scheduling, it eliminates the back and forth that's created through a contact form. And imagine if the person is on your website at 10 o'clock on Friday night. If they fill out your contact form, they may not get a response until Monday or even Tuesday. I saw one website recently that said, please fill out the contact form and we'll be back with you within 48 business hours. That's 2 days. And I know that they said that in order to cover themselves and ensure that they could meet that commitment. But in the Amazon economy, that's not good enough. If a person on Friday night is on your website and they see that the next available appointment is on Tuesday afternoon, they're willing to wait because at least they have a confirmed appointment, as opposed to waiting to be contacted back and then having to play the back and forth email game, which really is frustrating. So really think about moving forward and setting up appointment scheduling on your modern website. These apps, such as Acuity, which is the one I use, are very inexpensive. $10, $15, $20 a month. Really, is that too much to spend to provide this valuable feature to your prospects? And now I promised you a bonus fifth idea, and that is to use quizzes. So I was at Love Field in Dallas, Texas, and as I was getting off the airplane, walking through the terminal, heading to baggage claim, I saw this big sign on one of the columns just aside the escalator. And it says, test your ticker. Now, it's offered by a healthcare organization, and basically it's a quiz that you can take online to assess the health of your heart. Once you've taken it, you will get to the last screen of the quiz where they're asking you to fill out your contact information to get the results of the quiz. Now, you may have seen quizzes like this used in B2C scenarios. Actually, you can also use quizzes in B2B scenarios and have people fill out the quiz and then submit it to you to get a response, email back to them, and now you've gotten someone onto your list so that you can market to them in the future until they unsubscribe, if they ever do. Quizzes are a great way to capture people's attention, keep them on your website, and they're fun to take and can be informative. So consider borrowing a tactic from the B2C world and bringing it onto your website. If you add things like chat, quizzes, video, long-form blog posts, and appointment scheduling onto your website, you're going to have a much more modern and effective website than you do right now. So use this as a checklist along with some other information that I'm going to share with you. Now, you do need to understand SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and basically it is the process whereby your site lands on a search engine results page with Google. Google dominates the internet. Most people use the Google search engine. Apart from that, they might use YouTube, and they also own YouTube. So it's important to understand SEO, whether it's SEO for YouTube or SEO for Google. There's a great website called web.dev. And by going to this website and entering in the URL of your company website, you'll get a free report with ideas on how you could improve SEO on your website and make your website more friendly to Google's search engine. Isn't that an excellent resource that you would like to partake in? I recommend you go to web.dev and get that free report with some great ideas that you can take advantage of right away. Here's another checklist for you in terms of elements of an effective website. A clear message on the homepage about your key services. You need to have this above the fold. Above the fold means on the screen immediately when someone looks at your website. And of course, a lot of people are looking at your website on a mobile device. So you're going to have some good information about what you offer right at the top of your homepage so people see it right away, regardless of the form factor. Second, an easy path to find more info. That could be human-monitored chat to help people to find info more readily, or really good navigation so that people can get to the information they're looking for right away. After that is presence of social proof. And what I mean by social proof is other people speaking highly of what you have to offer. And that comes in the form of testimonials that are genuine from real customers, which oftentimes would include name, title, company, even better, a photo of a real person. A lot of websites have anonymous reviews where they have the first name, last initial, and not even a real photo or a photo at all. And that's helpful, but people aren't sure if this is really genuine. And unfortunately, there are a lot of fake reviews online, which is hurting legitimate reviews. When you have a real name, a real title with a real company, the person is much more likely to believe that this is a genuine review than the others. Case studies take it to another level. Case studies share how your company has truly solved a pressing problem for a real business. The real business volunteered to be a part of that case study because they liked what you had done for them so much. Now you're going to have to probably hire a professional writer to go out and interview your customer to create a real case study, and then you'll want to create a downloadable document. What you can do is make this downloadable document password protected, or actually not password protected, but what I mean by that is people have to give you their contact information in order to get it. So they have to opt in, so to speak, to get that case study because you've invested heavily to create that case study and you would like to know that a legitimate prospect is requesting it. So it's not too much to ask. After that is solid and relevant positioning versus your key competitors. How are you different from your competition? Is it clear to the website visitor who's seeing your business for the first time, or is it murky? Is it hard to figure out, or is it too generic? We provide great service. We honor our commitments. We run our business with integrity. Those kinds of generic value statements don't mean a whole lot to today's website visitor. So be really clear about how you're unique versus your competition. It's important. And use of keywords that match common search terms for the services or products that you offer. And you can figure this out by doing searches for the products and services you offer in your local area and seeing what businesses come up. If your website doesn't come up on page 1, then you might have some work to do. And remember, I did tell you about web.dev. Lastly, regular and relevant content, which we talked about earlier. On your blog, creating videos, creating special reports, that sort of thing. Use this as a checklist as well to evaluate your website and how effective it really is. Now, I want to share with you a process that you could use to take prospects through your website in 3 steps. And each step takes the buyer a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper with you so that it is a smooth process until they actually raise their hand and ask to be contacted by a salesperson at your company. Many companies are making the mistake in the B2B world of asking people to fill out their contact form and raise their hand to be talked to by a salesperson immediately. They have nothing to offer but a contact form and a demo. Most visitors to your website do not want to talk to a salesperson immediately after looking at a few pages. No, they'd like to learn from you first. That's today's big takeaway from this part 1, is that the best websites educate, and they educate deeply before they ask a person to contact a salesperson. If you can do that well, then you will have a big leg up over your competition, because most of your competitors in the SMB space now, SMBs, small medium business, we're not talking enterprise, global corporations, of course they're doing it very well, but SMBs aren't necessarily doing this well in many cases. So the first step is to allow people to read content, become educated, by your expertise without signing up for anything, and that would be your blog. That could also be video content. The second step is to sign up for deeper content, such as a newsletter or a video series or a white paper. Now, what I mean by a video series is, let's say that you have expertise in, for example, setting up a company's mobile workforce. So helping their mobile sales team to be very well equipped. If that's your expertise, imagine creating a video series where you have 4 or 5 videos explaining how to set up a mobile workforce to meet the demands of today's buyer. Well, by signing up for this, what happens is you set up what's called an autoresponder, and the person who signs up for it gets a newsletter with the video embedded, fed to them once per week on a schedule. All you have to do is set it and forget it. And then that person gets the video series, and by the end of it, if they've actually watched each one, which means that they're a real prospect, they're impressed. They are impressed because they've been educated automatically week after week for 4 or 5 weeks. So if you have good content, consider investing in creating a series like this. It could also be blog posts, doesn't have to be videos. It could even be podcasts. The point is, it's a series of educational content. After that, the third step is going deeper still, and that's signing up for a webinar or a live event. This is where people are actually going to be raising their hand and being taught live through a webinar or a live event. They could also sign up to listen to a podcast, which is initially delivered live and then presented as recorded content. Now, when people sign up for a live event, they know that chances are they're going to be contacted after that event. And so they're going deep in order to be educated as well as possible by experts on your team. So this is the third step. When you have 3 steps like this, where the buyer goes deep, deeper, and deeper still, now you've led them the way to the point where they will then raise their hand and say, I'd like to talk to a salesperson because you've helped me so much and shown that you truly are an expert in this space, and I'd like to learn what it's like to work with you. Now, I want to express the importance of Upkeep. This is so important. If you've been online for more than a year, chances are you have stale content on your website. And by stale content, I mean content that is out of date. It isn't relevant because technology has surpassed what you're talking about, or you're offering a solution through a case study, a video that is out of date technology. You have blog posts that are recommending solutions that are no longer viable. You're referring to attending events that were more than a year ago. That's over. That event is over. That's outdated content. You may have a promotion on your website that has long since expired. You may have a case study from a client that's over 5 years old. I say that because I've seen that on an actual B2B website. Case studies that are years old. They're no longer selling for you. They're actually hurting you and embarrassing you by making people think that you are way out of date. So what I recommend is once a month or at least once a quarter, have a reminder that comes up on your calendar saying, go through the website and ensure that everything is up to date and the latest information has been added to your website. You will thank yourself for doing this after you do your first clean sweep, because you'll find lots and lots of content in little dark corners of your website. That takes us to the final slide of part 1, and that means that the pull side is now in place. I've given you a lot of information by which to compare against your website. I highly recommend that you go through this information one more time and take a close look at your website and use the resources that I've mentioned to you to update your website and ensure that it's meeting today's SEO standards. If you have appreciated this video, please subscribe to my channel, please comment, please like and share this video with others. I would also appreciate you contacting me for more information about my services or to ask questions to go a little bit deeper about some of the content that I've shared here. I am happy to hear from you at michael@buildandbalance.com. Thank you very much. Please be sure to now view part 2 once it's been released, or if you're watching this a while after this video has been released, part 2 should now be available to you.